what I'm trying to say is that, in conclusion, I have no idea.
Face that chick, Jason now. Member of Top of the Rock, just face that chick. Slap that sauce on there. You know what I'm talking about. Hey, you sick freaks. Motley Crue's 40th anniversary cassette box set. Cassette box set. 5 cassettes, 5 albums. Too Fast for Love. Shout at the Devil, Theater of Pain, Girls, 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 and Dr. Feelgood. It's a limited release of 1,750 sets, cassette sets. They drop on Record Store Day, June 12th. Tonight, we feature the first of 2 episodes featuring soundman extraordinaire, Jay Barth. Jay worked with Cheap Trick, Alice Cooper, Blue Oyster Cult, and Joe Walsh. Our featured artist, Jordan Redd from London, UK. Headed up by singer Don Lee and guitarist Don Baker. This is Beautiful Monsters, Sick Freak Radio on Thor Internet Radio, New York City.
Rain down on everyone while fire's in the sky. Let go of empathy when they steal your pride. This dark will multiply the light of 10,000 fireflies. This heat will drive the tears of 10,000 lonely eyes. Bring out the demon that's taking us over. When we have control again, we will come again. Bring out the rage of your beautiful monster. When we have control again, we will take the fight to them. When we have control again. There's nothing beautiful in how they will divide. Cut through to your belief with a burning light. This dark will multiply the light of 10,000 fireflies. This heat will leave the tears behind. Bring out the demon that's taking us over. When we have control again, we will come again. Bring out the rage of your beautiful monster. When we have control again, we will take the fight to them. When we have control again, when we take control. Bring out the demon that's taking us over. When we have control again, we will come again. Bring out the rage of your beautiful monsters. When we have control again, we will take the fight to them. When we have control again, we will take control again.
I am ST, and we are Sick Freak Radio on Thor Internet Radio, New York City. Jason. Dude,
Stockton.
what's going on, man? It seems as though we've gotten a little bit of attention just on the interview we're going to do here in a couple minutes. Enough so that even Sarah from Thor Radio is going to jump in with us.
Hi.
How we doing, Sarah?
Doing great.
This is-
Glad to be here.
Welcome.
This is the first time you've actually jumped in with us after
Yeah.
8 episodes, 9
Yeah,
episodes.
This is it.
Happy to be here. Happy to be a part of it.
And Jason, we also have a new member or a potential new member of our little entourage, our cast of characters. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Tim?
Yeah, Tim is he's kind of like a brother from another mother to me. We go way back to the inner city streets of Chicago hanging out. Eventually he moved away, but we eventually reconnected back, and he was doing radio up at Northwestern, I believe it was. So welcome, Tim, and correct me if I was wrong about what you were doing up there.
No, you're absolutely right, dude. I was at Northwestern University on WNUR-FM, and I started there with a friend who was going to school with me at the time, and I kind of grandfathered into his position after he caught a job in St. Louis. So,
Lucky dog.
we were all trying to get a job at the time, and I just stayed on the radio there. And eventually my career path went in a different direction. So I kind of work in the entertainment industry, we'll say. And
Not porn.
not porn. No,
It's
no,
not Pornhub. Yeah, right.
It's the other debauchery. Gambling.
Right. Gambling. But, you do have an education background in production or...
Yeah,
or
music
or
production.
something.
I've made a number of commercials you can hear on the internet.
Cool.
Well, I'm glad
So,
you're.
this is the gentleman sitting with us, Doctor.
Well, I'm glad you're going to hang out with us a little bit, Tim. I hope we can. I hope we can get you to kind of come along and help us move on with move up with what we're trying to do.
Sure.
We've had pretty good luck, man. I mean, we've literally been able to pull things out of our ass, so to
Bare
speak.
ends,
And yeah,
I can make
and
I can make
and
some commercials or whatever, anything you guys need, man.
Right.
Liners, anything.
fantastic, man. Well,
So
I
I
hope
think we can get into the meat of everything here.
right. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest for this evening. He's the sound guy extraordinaire. I don't know what to call you, Jay, but welcome to the show, Jay Barth.
Hey, thank you very much.
Maestro.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Jay, for joining us, man. The first thing I want to ask you,
Sure.
where did Hot Sam come from?
Oh boy. Well, I've always been an avid Motown music fan, believe it or not, and the Motown guys all got their outfits from a place called Hot Sam's down in Detroit, which is still there, by the way. In fact, I have pictures of myself in front of the store from about a year ago or so. But anyhow, we were at the shop back at Fanfare, and we had an intercom, and somebody called, and they called on the intercom, and I said, Hot Sam's, just for the heck of it. I kind of answered the phone that way, and for some reason it stuck, and that's the honest truth. As easy as that.
Well, your reputation has kind of preceded you. I mean, I just looked over, and some of the information is available on your website, which is jbarth.com. Just looking over the artists that you've worked with over the years, it's insane, the people that you've worked with. From my point of view, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and someday I have to work some more on that website, because there's a lot that we could add to that I haven't. So
There
it's
could
a
be
work in progress.
there could be a book in your head.
Well, that's possible. I got to find some way to get it out of there, though. That's all. That's
Oh,
the
man.
hard part.
Oh man. So just to give a little idea, just a little taste of Jay's career, Jay has worked with, just run the alphabet. Right.
He
Bob,
mentioned Motown, and I see he's worked with Bootsy Collins. I'm interested in that. But What kind
Yeah.
of shows were those?
Well, I didn't spend a lot of time with Bootsy. It was about a 3-month stint back in, I want to say 79-ish or so.
I'm sure that's long enough.
And it was Bootsy's rubber band, and it was fun. It was he was a great guy and a great performer, and we had a good little run. So
where did you start out?
well, I grew up in the city of Detroit, and I started working. I started playing guitar, playing Beatles songs when I was about 10 years old, and ironically enough, I had a little band that we had when I was about 12. And we played there used to be these teen dance concerts at a high school, Notre Dame High School, which was on the far east side of Detroit. And one of my claim to fame is we played on a small stage on the opposite side of the room from the headliner, who was at the time Bob Seger. So, that'll fall into place a little later on in my story, I guess.
Right.
I went on to spend 16 years with him.
And quite a story it is, man. So you got into sound at some point.
At that point, yeah, our little band, I mean, we dabbled around, but then some other friends of mine had a band that was playing a little more successfully, and they hired me because basically I knew the difference between the input and the output on the guitar amp. At that point, I think I was about 14 or 15 at that point, and they were called Dobie's Itch, and we actually played at the Grandy Ballroom and played a lot of clubs and whatnot around. They evolved into a band called Scarab, and we used to travel to, when we were still in high school, we would travel for one of the guys in the band had an aunt that lived in Pittsburgh, and he got to know this guy named Richie Engler, who was half of a team called De Caesar Engler Productions, and they were the promoters of all things Pittsburgh. And they ended up booking us. We would leave school at 2:00 on Friday afternoon and go play clubs around Pittsburgh and come home Sunday. So that's kind of how I got started as being a roadie or sound guy. That kind of led to me meeting up with a fellow named Catfish Hodge. And Bob Catfish Hodge was, at the time, had a very popular record on the east side, or actually in Detroit. It was on CKLW and regional hit called The Boogeyman's Gonna Get You. So I joined up with Catfish doing sound, and we traveled all the same. We were booked by a company called Diversified Management, which was a guy named Dave Leon. And it was a booking agency out of Detroit that did everybody at that time. I mean, they did Alice Cooper and Ted Nugent and Bob Seger. And, we had a circuit of places that we all played, one after the other. And you would look at the calendar and, they're going to be here next week. And they were here last week. And, we'd go to places like Ocean City, Maryland, and Fort Lauderdale and Atlanta. And, we'd all did the same kind of club circuit. So while I was with Catfish in early 1983, we played at a free concert in Ann Arbor. They used to have them on Sunday afternoons in Gallup Park down here. And the company that did the sound there was called Fanfare. And those guys really liked what I did. And they said, "Hey, would you consider going on the road with us? We need a guy, but you got to leave like in 8 days or something."
Like right now, right?
I said, "Well, yeah, that sounds like fun." So I was my first, sort of bigger than the Detroit band was. I went immediately out with Joe Walsh and Barnstorm, and that was
wow.
in 73. And of course,
I was going to say you did say 83 before, and.
No, that was 73. Yeah.
Right. I didn't want to disrupt you while you were.
Oh, I'm sorry if I.
No.
It was all back then. So yeah, but
sometimes I forget what happened yesterday. So
73. So I started with Joe Walsh, and I was just like the third guy when I first went out, and then they promoted me to monitors, and that lasted a little while, and then. Our guy Marty that owned the company had to leave, and I took over the front of house for a while. So So Joe Walsh was kind of a big deal. It was a lot of fun doing those shows. We had some of my most memorable times in my career. We did a couple months in early '74 where the Joe Walsh was the headliner and the second band was the Eagles, and the opening act was the Souther Hillman Furay Band. And,
Who is that?
it's well, that was J.D. Souther and from Poco and Buffalo
wow.
Springfield, and Richie Furay from Buffalo Springfield, Chris Hillman from the Byrds.
Wow.
The drummer was a fellow named Jim Gordon, who you hear on Eric Clapton's Layla. He was a member of the Wrecking Crew.
Right.
Jim Gordon, he's now in jail somewhere in Canada for murdering his mother or something. He had some mental issues that we didn't really. I mean, he was the nicest guy in the world. A little quiet, but we never dreamt that he'd end up where he was. Fabulous drummer and fabulous history if you ever look him up. But that was a great, just a great night of talent. Those three acts. I
would say
place.
so.
I mean, oh my God, it was
right.
It was phenomenal. So,
and with Poco, with their own Eagles connection.
Oh yeah, they were all
right.
They were all kind of interconnected. And Joe, at that time, he was doing some session work with Eagles. You hear his solos on various places and whatnot.
And you can't miss Joe Walsh's guitar.
Yeah, before he actually joined the band.
Right.
And so that was a lot of fun. And that kind of leads me up to where we joined up with. Where I first met the Kiss guys was, I had been doing Joe Walsh, and a little bit of a backstory. The two guys that owned Fanfare, which is who I worked for at the time, Fanfare was our sound company, and the two guys that started it came from. One guy was Marty Priest, and Marty was the sound engineer for Alice Cooper. The other guy was Kurt Andrews, and Kurt was the sound guy for a very big regional band called Scott Richard Case, or SRC. They were a big Michigan band at the time. So those two guys both kind of left their bands at the same time. Alice kind of grew big enough to go national, and right. SRC was kind of disbanded, so they put their stuff together and created Fanfare. Before Marty did Alice Cooper, he worked for a girl band in Detroit called the Pleasure Seekers. And the Pleasure Seekers included three sisters, the Quattro sisters, Susie Quattro and Arlene Quattro and Patty Quattro. And so Marty knew them very, very well. And when Susie was brought in, she was huge in England. She went over to England, hooked up with Mickey Most, had a bunch of hit records. And when they decided to bring her back to the U.S., her first performance, the big gala, was the Michigan Palace Theater in Detroit. So she recruited Marty to do sound for her, and I was literally driving the truck all night long, myself and another fellow, to get back to the Michigan Palace. We arrived at about 7:30 in the morning. And the show was, Susie Quattro was the headliner, Blue Oyster Cult was the second act, and the opening act was this group called Kiss, who none of us had heard of before. They had done one show in Detroit previously with Aerosmith a couple weeks before, but we didn't know who they were. But we got there at 7:30 in the morning, and there's a whole row of marshals with a drum kit on an old forklift sitting there, and three guys in black leather jackets. And I said, Marty, I don't know what this is all about, but I got to go home. I'm tired. And so I actually went home. Didn't do that. I didn't do that show because Marty had some other guys there to do it. We had been on the road. We were all toasted. So at any rate, the Kiss guys loved our system. We used to have some big W bins and JBL horns and stuff, and we knew how to make it good and loud, and they loved it. So when they started coming back around, they hired us, and that's kind of how Fanfare got into working with Kiss. So
if we could, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
I'd like to kind of leave Kiss off till later.
Sure.
If you don't mind, because as a fan, I'm like the biggest drooling idiot.
We can happily jump back to that.
Hey, you sick freaks. Join us Saturday, June 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern for the second half of our interview with soundman extraordinaire, Jay Barth. Sick Freak Radio on Thor Internet Radio, New York City. I am ST, and this is Jordan Red.
So what you're saying is you wanna have it your way. So what you're saying is get in line. So what I'm saying is I'm never playing your game. So what I'm saying is I'm keeping mine. Come on, I know what you need. Get your face from the TV. Step on up and see everybody. Got a show for you. Come down, get your kicks for free. Let's all hang out at the freak show. Come down, come and dance with me. We got a show. So what you're saying is you wanna play it your way. So what I'm saying is you're out of time. Come on, I know what you need. Get your fix from the TV. Step on up and see everybody. Got a show for you. Come down, get your kicks for free. Let's all hang out at the freak show. Come down, come and dance with me. We got a show. Come down, get your kicks for free. Let's all hang out at the freak show. Come on down and say we got a show. So what you saying? It's a goodbye. So what you saying is our goodbye. Come down, get your kicks for free. Let's all hang out at the freak show. Come down, come and dance with me. We got a show. Come down, get your kicks for free. Let's all hang out at the freak show. Come down, come and dance with me. We got a show. Come down, get your kicks for free. Let's all hang out at the freak show. Come on down and say we got a show. We got a show.
Yeah! Pablo Miniasi, Buenos Aires, Argentina. This guy's no shit. Check him out on YouTube. Damn. More of Jay Barth. Coming right up now. You got into Bob Seger around 76, though, right?
Well, that's correct. And Bob opened a number of our shows. Some of the most famous shows, Anaheim Stadium and Atlanta, and the big one at Roosevelt outside of New York there and Jersey. So I actually got to know Bob and the band from doing that, and also at the same time, Fanfare, being the Michigan guys that we did Bob's headlining shows when he was in Michigan, even though I wasn't the mixer for some of those.
Right.
We did the Pontiac Silverdome.
Wow.
And and we recorded that. We did the Live Bullet album.
Right. Wow.
And then when at the end of '76, Bob lost his sound guy, who was a British fellow named Brian Chubb, and Brian's paperwork wasn't in order, and he got deported back to England, and they hired me in fall of '76. So, and then I was with Bob through 1992. So
you saw a lot of it.
I did everything Bob Seger from September '76 to end of '92. Any concerts that he did at that time. So,
and Bob Seger has always been a big draw. Literally, Bob, is there's nothing flashy. There's nothing.
Yeah,
it's
Midwestern rock and roll. And,
absolutely.
Bordering on, I guess in today's radio genre, you'd probably call it country, but
right, probably you're right.
Radio has changed since then.
Right.
So I mean,
but everybody, every rock band has covered him. I mean,
yeah.
heavy metal bands. I'm sure country bands have covered him as well.
But, quite a few. Yeah.
But it's that spillover kind of thing that Bob always had, that universal appeal.
Yeah.
Because it was just old time rock and roll band. Not to be cliche, but
a lot of great songs.
So Jay, do you have like a collection of soundboard recordings?
I have a box of some. There was a great box of stuff that was stolen from us years ago that I was sad to lose. It had a lot of Kiss stuff in it, and it also had some stuff that my cohort CB and I used to listen to, and that was some live tapes from Commander Cody and John Prine that we used to do a lot of shows. Whenever Kiss wasn't working, we did whatever shows we could get, back in the 70s and whatnot. Like I mentioned earlier, we did Blue Oyster Cult with Aerosmith opening, and we did a lot. Somebody was talking about Styx earlier. We did a number of Styx shows.
Oh, no kidding.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it was just, they hired our PA. I didn't mix the band. I was the system engineer. But God, I remember one time we were doing Styx, and we had to go. We were on our way to New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, which we affectionately know as New Bumfuck and nowhere close to it. But we were driving along the St. Lawrence Seaway up there past Quebec City, and all of a sudden we come around the corner and it's just a whiteout, and all the cars are stopped, and we stopped. By the time we got moving, the snow was halfway up the side of the truck, and we made it up to the next exit and found this little place that had a room it was a bar attached, and there was a room and, bathrooms down the hall kind of place. It was funky. We didn't have any choice. We stopped in there, and of course we immediately made it to the bar, and the Canadian fellas find out we were working for Styx, and it was all over then. We didn't buy a drink the rest of the night.
Wow.
And we had way too many. So they ended up taking us for rides on snowmobiles and stuff out there. We had a real awesome hoot, but we finally hey little boy, you want to take a ride on my snow out in the woods with me? We finally made it to, I think it was Moncton, New Brunswick or something was our first show out there. But we did 3 or 4 shows with Styx at that time, and we did a number of things in between. Whenever the band would take a break, we would do whatever we could get. So we did Styx, we did Blue Oyster Cult, we did Commander Cody, we did John Prine. God, I'm trying to think of some other ones.
You mentioned that Aerosmith had opened for Blue Oyster Cult. What year was that?
That was probably 74.
74. So that's pretty early. That's pretty early Aerosmith right there.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
That is absolutely fantastic stuff. That's Get Your Wings. That
was at the Aragon Ballroom. Yeah.
Right. Were they doing because I can remember, because Blue Oyster Cult was kind of regional in New York, I mean, they were a big deal in New York, but not so much, national. Where did Aerosmith open? Was it East Coast?
No, just Chicago was the only one that I remember. Yeah,
okay.
And most of the other ones were, God, I can't even remember. That's the only one of any real note that I recall. But we probably did a couple dozen BOC shows at one point or another. But the only real famous one was Aerosmith. And then, of course, the Cult opened for Suzi Quatro at that infamous first show that we saw the Kisters. So
Right. And Blue Oyster Cult, I have like a long history with Blue Oyster Cult. As a fan, my first big concert was seeing. To give you a little background, I grew up on a farm in upstate New York where we didn't have street lights, we didn't have traffic lights, we didn't have anything, and I got invited to go through a family friend. I got invited to go to see. It was Black and Blue.
yeah,
At 1980 at Nassau Coliseum, and it was Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio when Dio first came out with Black Sabbath.
there you go.
I knew Sabbath, but I didn't know Dio. I kind of knew Dio because of the Rainbow thing, and actually I got a funny story about that too. But I didn't know Blue Oyster Cult very well, and I walked into Nassau Coliseum as a farm boy at 12 years old. And I had no clue what I was going to walk into. It was insane.
Yeah.
And I've been a Blue Oyster Cult fan ever since. I've seen Blue Oyster Cult a number of times. They would come up to because they're New York City based. They would come up to this little town called New Paltz, which is a college town in upstate, and they would come up and they would promote themselves. They wouldn't say they were Blue Oyster Cult, and the clubs that they would play at wouldn't promote it as Blue Oyster Cult. They would promote it as Soft White Underbelly. And they would come up, which was the name of the band before they were officially Blue Oyster Cult. They would come up to New Paltz and they would kind of audition before they would go, not audition, but they would kind of like work on their sets and rehearse before in front of 150 people in these little clubs in New Paltz. And man, I've seen Blue Oyster Cult so many times. Actually, the last time I saw Blue Oyster Cult, Eddie Money opened for him. And it was shortly before Eddie Money was doing his reality show, and shortly after that Eddie Money passed away.
Yeah.
And Eddie Money was when I saw him, Eddie Money was in pretty bad shape.
He was a wonderful guy. Eddie Money was.
You knew Eddie Money as well?
Well, we just met him a few times. He came and hung out at Seger's show out in Oakland, and a couple different occasions we ran across him. He was just always real affable, great guy. So very nice. Right.
And you spent, how much time did you spend with Alice Cooper?
Well, a couple things. It's funny. I worked for Joe Walsh after the James Gang, and I worked for the James Gang after Joe Walsh. So,
right.
Sometime back in '75, when Kiss was on a break, Marty Priest, who I mentioned before, was out doing both Alice Cooper and the opening act for the Welcome to My Nightmare tour, which was Suzi Quatro.
Right. Oh, wow.
So Suzi had to leave before the end of the tour, and they brought in the James Gang for the last 5 weeks or something. So I was out on the Alice tour, but I was mixing the James Gang as the opening act.
Right.
And then in the 80s, what was it, 83 or early 4, I did a tour with Alice. It was, Flush the Fashion or something they called it. They're garbage. They had garbage all over the stage. It was a time when Alice was going through some.
He was having a tough time. Yeah,
he was having a tough time. I mean, he had his little cooler with Budweisers with him all the time, right. And he's ended up in the back of the bus doing unmentionable things and whatever. But he's actually a very great guy. But it was kind of a time when the excesses were sort of taking over. So,
right. And then around that time, then you got involved with Rod Stewart as well, correct?
Well, yeah, and before that, I did Blondie. And
Okay.
I did the
Wow.
last. That was called Tracks Across America. It was the last real Blondie tour,
Wow.
and it's another one of those things where it was kind of a tour of turmoil. You know, Debbie and Chris were both in their little trailer doing whatever they did. You know, it was kind of troublesome, but the band broke up right at the end of that thing, and like Duran was our opening act for that whole tour, and it was funny because they were out. You know, there was more kids to see Duran than there were Blondie.
Then it was for Blondie, right?
So,
Right.
you know, they were real big at the time. So
Right.
So Jay,
Yeah.
were you
Sorry.
doing shows overseas or just on the U.S. side?
Well, if we did, of course, I was in the first Kiss Europe tour, and Bob Seger we went to Europe in '77. We toured through Europe, and then we also toured Europe again in 1980. And that was the last time that Seger left our shores, at least to play. So,
Right.
unfortunately, he never went to places like Australia. You know, when I was in Australia, I've been there a number of times with Cheap Trick and with Rod Stewart. But people found out I worked with Seger, they would go nuts because he was just huge down there, and he never went and played there, I never understood it because it's like the greatest place to go. And, you know, it's just a great place to go tour. They take great care of you, and people love, you know, they just loved him there. And he never went, so I never understood it, but what are you going to do?
But you did some really big concerts with Rod Stewart.
Yeah, I started with Rod. I had a great relationship with a sound company called Electrotech because they did the Bob Seger 1983 tour, and the guys from Electrotech did Rod Stewart. A fellow that owned Electrotech was a fellow named Ricky Farr, and he's another story. If you look him up, there's a lot. You know, you'll find a lot of rock history with Ricky Farr, RIKKIFARR. He promoted the big Isle of Wight concerts and did a bunch of stuff. And he started this company, Electrotech. They came from England over here. Anyhow, the Rod tour was having some trouble. They weren't happy with the guy that was mixing at all, and they called me and said, "Can you come out and see what's and take this?" So I went up to, actually they were at Pine Knob here in Detroit, so I went and I said, "Yeah, I'll mix it up," and I mixed it up, and they loved it. So I ended up being with him for a little over 2 years. So and it was a lot of fun because with Rod, it's much different than with Bob Seger. Bob Seger's big over here, but Rod's like big internationally. He's
Right.
You know, when you're on the road with Rod, it's like you might as well be with Marilyn Monroe or something, because it's like tabloids are all wanting to know, you know, who's the next blonde, what's going on, what's the scoop, it's just a different kind of scenario when you're out there with him. But it was great times. We had it was fun times. We did Australia, we did South America, we did South Africa, we did Asia. We certainly went all around everywhere with Rod, and that was a lot of fun.
What was the largest crowd you've had to provide sound for?
Well, I don't know if provide sound as far as to actually mix at was probably Rod Stewart at we did the very first Rockin' Rio festival in Rio de Janeiro, and that was over 200,000 people.
Incredible.
So that was probably the biggest event that I mixed for, though I didn't have anything to do with doing the sound system. It was a Clare Brothers thing at the time. So big, massive thing with delay towers and whatnot. But the biggest thing that we ever did with fanfare, I think, was probably like the Anaheim Stadium and stuff like that. We did a couple, that summer of stadiums with Kiss was the biggest ones that we did with fanfare.
How just to get, if you were to guess, how many people have you been in front of? I mean, live total.
Oh, geez. Well, I estimate I did around 3,000 concerts. So,
Right.
Wow.
in my 30 years of doing it, and I don't know if you took an average of, even if it was an average of 6,000 or 8,000, you'd probably come up with quite a few. I mean, some of it was clubs, with
Right. Yeah, but then the offset of it was humongous concerts.
was big, yeah. So
Yeah.
lots of folks.
Right.
I've abused lots of ears out there. So
Well, apparently somebody liked it because they kept asking you to come back. So
I was blessed to do that. So
Jay, Aretha,
yeah.
how was she to work with?
Well, it was always very interesting, wonderful, obviously one of the best singers in the history of popular music, but I don't know if she wasn't real bright, and she was always very afraid of people. She had some brother-in-law or somewhere really rip her off at one point. So when you would have to like go to her hotel room after the show and just wait in line to get paid in cash.
Oh, wow.
Every night. And this was, and backstage at every show, there was an IRS guy that taking their cut first.
Wow.
Then you'd get paid in cash. And I always knew, but it was fun because we did a lot of, we went to New York and Washington, D.C. a lot. We did, just big high level things, Bill Clinton's birthday party at Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, wow.
Ahmet Aragon's bash at whatever, at the big hotel at Ballroom there. Stuff like that, very high level, pretty cool stuff. But and it was a good run actually, and I thought we did pretty well. And I always knew that at some point it would be that if I left, it would be something really stupid. Okay, because it's just the way it is with that group. So
right.
We were in Chicago in 1996, I think it was, or was early 6. It was we were there for the Democratic National Convention. And she was to perform at the convention, and I was there at the convention hall, and I'm on stage with the guy from ABC News and all these people, and telling people where the piano went and everything, and getting stuff ready. And we did a sound check, and then we had a show. We did a show that night. We were setting up for the next day, and then we went and did a show that night in Grant Park. And I don't know, you Chicago guys are probably familiar with the little band shell they got down there, and it went just fine, And she actually personally called me at the hotel. She said, "Jay, I want to thank you so much. I got so many compliments tonight." She said, "The Reverend Jackson and the mayor, they all were just raving. They said they had the best time, and it sounded wonderful. Thank you." And I said, "Well, thank you, Miss Franklin. That's great. Awesome." So we hung up, and then the next morning I got a call from one of her guys, and he says, "Miss Franklin has wanted me to tell you she no longer needs your services."
What the hell?
And I said, "What? Okay. This is a bit odd, Like, do you know? I talked to her last night. She says, I know." He's going, "I know, Jay, but this is what the." So it turns out that in Grant Park out there was some kind of skirmish, some kind of thing that, people were upset. They couldn't hear the concert and they weren't even in the concert. They were just in the park somewhere. And somehow it got written up in the newspaper, and she read about it, that people were upset they couldn't hear the sound. So,
and that wasn't your fault. I know what you're talking about. And the problem was at that time, they only had speakers that came out just past where they have the seating up front by the show. and then they only had so many speakers far back, and then
Yeah.
you were lucky if you heard it, you know.
Well, if you were outside the little venue, there was
Exactly.
nothing out there, you know. And
Now
so
they have
there-
speakers everywhere. You would have crushed it out the park
Well,
nowadays, but
there was a little mini riot, and that's how I lost the gig. So there you go.
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you in Brooklyn, New York. We have to let you go. Sir.
Well, like I said, I always knew it would be something stupid. And
Right.
I heard she
certainly
was very controlling, so that's why I figured
She could be, but like I said, I got along great with her, and everything was wonderful for 2.5 years. So,
But I think she kind of earned the right to be controlling, or
Absolutely.
to have not necessarily, maybe controlling isn't the right word, but
Yeah.
she earned the right to be in control. How about something like that?
well, there's no question. She earned a lot. She was one of the greatest. So, but it's just part of the pride I take in having been with some great singers. I mean, with Aretha, Rod Stewart, Bob Seger, Robin Zander,
Right.
Brian Howe. Just great singers. I've been blessed
Right.
to be with.
Wow.
And then-
Yeah, I can't imagine. If you wouldn't mind hanging out with us for a little bit, Jay,
Yeah.
I would really appreciate it. We kind of have to take a little break.
Okay. Well, you know what? I could use a run upstairs to my special room and be right back.
Absolutely.
I second that, sir.
Do you want me to cut that part out, Jay? When you
Well, you could call it a rubber room or something. I don't know.
This is the Insanitarium. I understand that completely.
But
Fantastic. We are Sick Freak Radio on Thor Internet Radio, New York City. Yeah. Pablo's strut that song. Bass that shit. Give me some of that. Yeah. I am ST. And this is Jordan Red.
Back to the wall, you're a true believer. Hand on the gun will be yours tonight. Trapped in a world as your own deceiver.
Yep. Got it going on. I want to thank our sponsor for tonight's episode, C Barber, year-round property care. Give a call for all your lawn care needs. 607-349-7858. Of course, we got to thank everybody that makes this stuff happen. It's not me, man. It's not. Jason the Viking. Watching my ass. No shit. Tom Palmatier. Putting everything together. Making it sound good. Jay Barth. Thanks, man. You'll be on the, there's more Jay Barth. Trust me. It's absolutely fantastic. Of course, our featured artist, Jordan Red, rounding everything out. Pablo Miniasi. Man, listen to that guy play. No shit. I love you, Mom.